Hi, my name's Paul and welcome to another episode of Book Seriously Man, where we try our very best to learn absolutely nothing at all. Today we are going to review Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. Richard Matheson, born 1926, died 2013. I Am Legend, published 1954. This book is a post-apocalyptic horror novel. To some people, it's a vampire novel. To other people, it's a warning. It's a warning about environmental disasters, or environmental change, or chemical warfare. Published in 1954, we need to take account that in 1954 was the year that the United States first launched the USS Nautilus, the first nuclear-powered submarine. It is also the same year that they tested one of the biggest hydrogen bombs ever on the Bikini Atoll. So with all this in mind, and taking into account that the post-apocalyptic problem in here is spread by dust on the wind, we have to take account of all the things that are going on at the time that this was wrote. So, ecological disaster novel, horror novel, vampire novel, science fiction. It is, of all them, whatever you want it to be. I've got a slightly different take. But reading the reviews online, everybody's got a slightly different take. But this is my take. Okay? In my opinion, all them other things aside, it's more a story about loss and loneliness. It's about doubt, the paranoia that is bred from doubt and anxiety and all them horrible things that go on more within your own mind than actually occur in real life. So we're dealing with a last man on earth situation. Not a last being, not a last person, because as we said, this is a vampire novel, as well as a partial zombie novel, and all the other bits of novel chucked into a science fiction guise. So it's about loneliness. Not being alone, but being lonely. And it's about all the problems that is brought with that, and that comes with that. All the terrors, all the anxieties, all the doubts, all the confusion about being the last sane person on the planet. And that is at least how our main character sees himself, at least at the beginning. But we don't want to give too much away, not at this point. But following on from this, the novel's also about moral righteousness. Moral righteousness through majority rule, or at least majority beliefs. It's a book about how cultures and societies will slowly change throughout history, and will probably go on to change throughout our own future, but differently in different cultures. But it's about how it will change, all depending on what the majority says is the right thing to do. You might at first have the minority saying what the right thing is to do, but a belief system's only based on what the majority believes in. But what we're saying in this book, in this case, we start off with majority rule. Our main character believes that he is right and he is part of the majority. He's taking the traditions of the majority that he was part of and he's brought them into the future, but now he is but one man trying to hold on to these traditions of the past and trying to apply them to an ever-changing culture of the future. And it is not working, even though he knows and he thinks and he believes that he is correct, because he has a history to back him up. The future society is not accepting this, and therefore you have conflict. It is about believing that you're right in the face of all the odds, in the face of all the forthcoming evidence. It's about also being able to change It's about being able to see the future, read the future, and realise that it is changing and you're not. And what happens? What happens if you don't change with the times? What happens if you stand up for what you believe in, but when everyone else is standing against you? What happens then? What happens if you represent a culture or a society and you're standing up for the moral beliefs of that, but all those around you are slowly changing? Conflict will always be inherent. Page 159. Then suddenly silent, as though a heavy blanket had fallen over their heads, they all stood looking up at him with their white faces. He stared back. And suddenly he thought, I'm the abnormal one now. Normalcy was a major concept, the standard of many, and not the standard of just one man. Abruptly that realization joined with what he saw on their faces: awe, fear, shrinking horror, and he knew that they were afraid of him. To them he was some terrible scourge they had never seen, a scourge even worse than the disease that they had come to live with. He was an invisible spectre who had left for evidence of his existence the bloodless bodies of their loved ones. And he understood what they felt, and did not hate them. It was a really nice passage. It's about the changing of the old guard, throwing out the traditions that some people hold on to, whilst having to have the new traditions, the new beliefs, the new majority rule forced upon you. Willing or not, it is going to happen. Now, we said earlier that this is a vampire novel. And we also said it's a horror novel. And we said it's many other sorts of novels, and indeed it is. But it's very interesting to note, and I think it's very important to note, that Matheson does not shortchange us. He looks into the biological question of what vampirism and zombieism may be, and its causes. He also looks into the details, the medical details, and also some of the philosophical details of vampirism. He doesn't just say, oh, these are vampires, accept it and move on, it's part of the story. He does have a biological and mythological attempt at explaining why vampires are thus and what affects them, the old-fashioned stake in the heart and the cross. And he does not shortchange his reader to that extent. Page 124. Why should a Jew fear the cross? He said. Why should a vampire who had been a Jew fear it? Most people were afraid of becoming vampires. Most of them suffer from hysterical blindness before mirrors. But as far as the cross goes, well, neither a Jew, nor a Hindu, nor a Mohammedan, nor an atheist, for that matter, would fear the cross. Very interesting. He's trying to go a bit further than just saying, these are the conventions. He's saying, let's discuss the conventions. And also, let us have a look, page 132. We're saying he doesn't shortchange you on the biological aspect of vampires being vampires. Now, let me have a look. I might get some of these words wrong. It is a bacillus, he said, a cylindrical bacterium. It creates an isotonic solution in the blood, circulates the blood slower than normal, activates all bodily functions, lives on fresh blood, and provides energy. Deprived of blood, it makes self-killing bacteriophages, or else sporulates. She looked blank. He realised then that she couldn't have understood. Terms so common to him now were completely foreign to her. Well, he said, most of those things aren't so important. To sporulate is to create an oval body that has all the basic ingredients of the vegetative bacterium. The germ does that when it gets no fresh blood. Then, when the vampire host decomposes, these spores go flying out and seek new hosts. They find one, germinate, and one more system is infected. She shook her head, incredulous. So you see, he doesn't mess about. He gives you a bit of history, a bit of tradition, a bit of science, a bit of myth, sticks them all together, and tries to tell one of many stories, and it's up to you. Do you want it to be just a vampire novel? Then it is, and that's alright. Do you want it to be a vampire stroke zombie novel? It is that as well. Do you want it to be an ecological novel about the terrors of the future. It can be that. Or is it a novel about despair, loneliness, changing cultures, and you having to change beliefs to keep up with that? It can be all these things. And I'm sure if you read it, you will get far more out of it than what I could possibly even manage. But that's just my little reading of it. But there is a lot in there. Now, it's funny, before I did this video, I checked out some of the reviews, because I thought this book's great. It's got all this in it, and I'm sure there's got tons more in it that someone with a few more brain cells than me, they'll be able to pick up on that. I thought this is a brilliant book. I'll see what other reviews are. Not Goodreads, because Goodreads is normal people like us, and we'll think it's pretty good, I reckon. Thought I'll have a look at the academic, you know, the proper people that write for the Sunday Times type reviews. And pretty much all the serious reviewers put this book down. They hate it. They don't like it. His writing style is quick, short sentences, to the point, but misses a lot of what's going on. And in fact, some of the reviews, I couldn't help but think that they were describing how Hemingway writes. Short sentences, to the point, gets on with it, doesn't mess about, not too much back history, tells you what he needs to tell you, and then moves on. And that's what Matheson's doing here. But I thought it was very telling with these reviews, these serious reviews by serious people for serious publications. I think out there in the big wide world, there's a bit of sci-fi snobbery going on. Or horror fiction snobbery. Or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of snobbery going on with books, isn't it? Well, sod them, right? I Am Legend. Will we keep it on the shelf? Yes, we will. Fantastic book. Do go out, find it, buy it, Kindle it, whatever versions it comes on, whatever version pleases you. Have it on a CD in your car. Actually, probably best not, because it's really engrossing. We don't want no accidents. Brilliant book. Give it a go. See what you think. Tell me in the comments. It's always good. Don't mind chatting with anybody about anything. And that's a good one to chat about. So, have we learnt anything? Probably not. Same as usual. But we've had a good time, haven't we? Alright. I'll see you later, and take it easy.